right here, okay? National Geographic. Dr. Jonathan Pritchard estimates that the point in time, okay, when the genes of Asian and European populations were altered was 6,600 years ago. Let me come right here. Alan Cooper, director of the Australian Center for Ancient DNA at the University of Adelaide, analyzed DNA from ancient skeletons and found that the genetic makeup of modern Europe was just 6,500 years old. Now, the reason that I'm showing that is to say this. All of our shit was already built. Them pyramids was already built. The pyramids in America was already built. The pyramids in Antarctica that we built was already built. The pyramids in China that they try to hide and act like they landfills was already built. So my point is this. My people already circumnavigated the earth. We already created and understood that the earth was a globe. And we already mastered medicine. And we already mastered astrology before y'all came. And the reason that the date is important is because I'm waiting. And it don't got to be you. I'm putting this message out to the world. I'm waiting for a non-black person to tell me where they came from outside of religion and outside of evolution. That's what I'm waiting on.
Thank you for and by the way, I'm with you that Europe came to Egypt. They saw this successful nation and they said it can't be. How could it be that they were so advanced?
Not Europe, because there was no Europe yet.
What I mean is people from the other nations came to Egypt and saw what
homeless Caucasoids. Let's use the
okay. And
wandering Caucasoids.
And the message I would give is that let's keep it moving. Let's keep going. If history of the black community is so beautiful, let's keep growing. Let's not harbor.
Give us our shit. We trying to go. We're the Reparations Act. Tell the British Museum.
Reparations is a whole conversation
it's not hard. How about this? It's not hard.
No, not hard.
Everything you have today, you stole it. Give it back. That's easy. It's easy. I went to jail. Do you know what I had to do when I got convicted of a crime? I had to pay restitution. So y'all all Caucasoids, Israel, Britain, Germany, the Netherlands, America, India, especially Middle East.
What did Israel do?
What did Israel do?
They didn't do slavery in America. Slavery in America was America, not Israel.
Oh boy. Name of the slave owner, Henry Berstein. My great-grandfather was a slave owner. Slaves, one female, age 4, mulatto, one female, age 17, mulatto. Oh, Professor, I'm so sorry.
Okay, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get to
Here are some words of the major Jewish history of the early Americas called New World Jewry. It's by S.B. Liebman and the American Jewish Historical Society. He wrote about those who owned and manned the ships. Quote, "They came with ships carrying African blacks to be sold as slaves. The traffic in slaves was a royal monopoly, and the Jews were often appointed as agents for the crown in their sale. They, the Jews, were the largest ship chandlers in the entire Caribbean region, where the shipping business was mainly a Jewish enterprise. The ships were not only owned by Jews, but were manned by Jewish crews and sailed under the command of Jewish captains." Now here's how I came to discuss the Jewish slave trade on Black Perspectives in the News on PBS. In the late 60s, I became acquainted with a slave trade researcher by the name of Walter White. He wrote a short booklet called Who Brought the Slaves to America? I contacted him and began doing my own research into the slave trade. I've read all the official Jewish histories pertaining to it. I've followed the issue for over 25 years now, scanning official Jewish general histories on the subject, and often those histories were published by Jewish historical societies and groups. These were histories written by Jews for Jews, and here's some direct quotes from leading Jewish historians writing about the African slave trade. Prominent Jewish historian Mark Raphael, in his book Jews and Judaism in the United States, A Documentary History, wrote, quote, Jewish merchants played a major role in the slave trade. In fact, in all the American colonies, whether French, Martinique, British, or Dutch, Jewish merchants frequently dominated. This was no less true on the North American mainland, where during the 18th century, Jews participated in the triangular trade that brought slaves from Africa to the West Indies and there exchanged them for molasses, which in turn was taken to New England and converted into rum for sale in Africa. Isaac da Costa of Charleston in the 1750s, David Franks of Philadelphia in the 1760s, and Aaron Lopez of Newport in the late 1760s and early 1770s dominated Jewish slave trading on the American continent. Jewish historians record old Jewish documents showing how the slave trade was so thoroughly Jewish that slave auctions throughout the Americas had to close on Jewish holidays. Brazil received far more African slaves than North America. A. Witzner, another official of the Jewish Historical Society, in his book Jews in Colonial Brazil, pages 72 and 73, wrote, quote, "The buyers who appeared at the auctions were almost always Jews, and because of their lack of competitors, they could buy slaves at low prices. If it happened that the date of such an auction fell on a Jewish holiday, the auction had to be postponed." Studying the Jewish histories of the New World, I began to learn of a carefully recorded Jewish history that you and I are not permitted to know about. I discovered that many centuries before the transatlantic slave trade, that Jews had dominated the slave trade in the entire Western world for the last 2,000 years, even as far back as Roman times. Duncan Wagnall's Jewish Encyclopedia, in Volume 10, page 48, writes, quote, "The trade in slavery constituted the main source of livelihood for the Roman Jews. In the 5th century, Pope Gelasius permitted Jews to introduce slaves from Gaul into Italy on the condition that they were non-Christian. In the 8th century, Charlemagne explicitly allowed the Jews to act as intermediaries in the slave trade. In A History of the Jews from Babylonian Exile to the end of World War II, published by the Jewish Publication Society of America, the author writes, quote, "The Jews were among the most important slave dealers in European society." And here's a quote from the famous Jewish historian Jacob Marcus in the Encyclopedia Britannica. He matter-of-factly talks about the Jewish control of commerce in the Middle Ages. Quote, "In the Dark Ages, the commerce of Western Europe was largely in his hand, in particular, the slave trade. Not only were Jews the principal slave traders, they had markedly higher per capita holdings of slaves than did non-Jews. Jacob Marcus wrote in the United States Jewry, 1776-1985, page 586, quote, "All through the 18th century to the early 19th, Jews in the North were to own black servants. In 1820, over 75% of the Jewish families in Charleston, Richmond, and Savannah owned slaves. Almost 40% of all Jewish householders in the United States owned one slave or more."
But these were Jewish people owning the land. They were the majority. They were the merchants. They were the traders. They knew how to hook up with their brethren in the north. And they would send raw cotton to the mills in England, in Manchester, Leeds, and Bristol, and the British would turn it into cloth and then sell it all over the world. The Rothschilds became rich from cotton. The Lehman Brothers became rich from cotton in Alabama, then moved to New York and Wall Street. I know the truth, and somebody gotta tell it or die trying.
Do you not know?
I don't get into it.
Jeffrey Epstein is an Israeli spy. We should be going
What
to
connection to slavery? What connection to slavery?
What about slavery? They were.
You're talking about reparations. You're talking about reparations. I'm talking about reparations of Black America. What would that have to do with Epstein Messiah?
Reparations, so that we're clear, is not a past issue. It's a present issue. We need reparations for the Tuskegee experiments. We need reparations for everything. We're not just talking about this. We need reparation for the school to prison pipeline. We need reparation for the fact that in 2015, the police killed more black people than they did in the worst year of Jim Crow. We need reparations for chemtrails. We need reparations for GMOs.
My brother, we could go off on that. We can go
every motherfucking thing that y'all doing until y'all stop. Straight up.
Don't say y'all. I didn't do anything.
Your community and all other causes.
Epstein's not my community, but okay, fine.